Hi, this is Bob Miglani, best-selling author of Embrace the Chaos and the co-author of the hot new book, if I don't say it myself, Make Your Own Luck, which is about how to grow and follow the 7 accelerators to increase your odds of success. This video, today, I'm going to talk to you about how do you reinvent your career. Yes, how do you reinvent your career and grow your career in these times of change, disruption, and speed that we live in today? I've had to personally reinvent my career, like many of you, over so many years. I worked at a Dairy Queen growing up. I was a sales rep for a very large Fortune 500 company in New York City. I moved from there to different jobs in corporate headquarters. I created new departments and new functions in a very big company. And then I wrote books. I became a motivational speaker. I left corporate America, worked in a small company. And today what I do is speak, I write, and I advise leaders on how to change. So I've had to reinvent myself a number of times. But today I want to share with you 5 key secrets that I've learned over my course of 27, 30, almost 30 years now of working in lots of different roles, lots of different jobs, lots of different places, and to share with you how you can grow and reinvent your career. All right, number 1, start before you need to. Start before you need to. A lot of us are facing disruption these days. And what happens is we focus on doing our job really well. And that's great. But at the same time, you have to understand that illusion of stability is simply that, an illusion. So much has changed in the marketplace. So much is changing in the marketplace, in the world, that it's going to disrupt your organization, your company. It might already be. And so what you have to do is to think about how you can grow within that context. And so what I'm suggesting to you is start before you need to. When I was a sales rep for Pfizer, one of the biggest companies in the world in New York City, I had this desire, I had this idea, hey, I want to work in international business, but I didn't know anything. And so what I did was I was taking a class, an MBA class downtown in the evenings while I was a sales rep in those days. And what I did was I had one of these classes where they invite guest speakers in. So you know what I did? I wrote to the president of Pfizer International to ask him to be a speaker in my class. And he said yes. And what that did for me was, number 1, I got him in, I got to know him, I built a relationship, but I began to reach out before I needed to. And that relationship eventually led me to move from a job in sales at Pfizer in New York City to a job in international business itself. It took time to get there, but I began before I needed to. Meaning, I was happy with my job, I was very successful, I was a #1 sales rep, I was doing very well, I was climbing the ladder, if you will, in sales, but I wanted to do something different, so I acted before I needed to. Start before you need to. The other example I have is I was working in corporate America and in a good job, and what I wanted to do was to see what else was out there. So I had a friend who was working with small companies, and so one of those small companies said to me, I met one of the CEOs of small companies, he said, hey, would you like to join our advisory board? I said, sure. I'd love to learn about this new field, which was supply chain and technology. I became an advisor to the company, being on their advisory board. It was allowed by my company. It was not paid, but it was something that I could use as a way to learn and explore things. So that's number 1 is, and eventually what happened with that company was, when I left my corporate job, they offered me a full-time job working as Chief of Business Development there. And so I ended up moving to that company because I got to know them very well. Number 2 is be curious and explore. When I was in a function called pricing in the company at Pfizer over the years, many years ago, I was interested in learning about how healthcare systems are changing around the world. There was a lot of challenges that we were facing in a business. And so I became curious. And so that curiosity led me to realize and have this profound realization that the business environment was changing dramatically. And so what that led me to do was to actually pitch a bold idea to management to change the way we manage this one particular stakeholder and customer. So I reinvented my career as a result of being curious and trying to learn about something that was happening in the marketplace that led me down a path of actually pitching a new idea, a new concept to management. So I got a chance to run that. I moved from the pricing division, I got to create my own, this little division called Market Access, and today what's called Global Health and Value. Today that division started with me and no headcount and no resources, but I got a shot, and it's because I was curious and I was really had a deep expertise and learned as much as I could about a specific area, and I pitched it, and so I got a chance to grow from that. So that's the second lesson, is be curious and explore. Number 3, talk to people. I realize I'm not that smart of a person, but there's so many other smart people out there. So talk to as many people as you can about opportunities, about what's happening in the world, about the changes that you're seeing, and learn from them. I'll give you an example. One time I had this idea of writing a book, and I began writing a book while I was doing my corporate job, which I could do in the evenings when I came home. One day I was at a dinner in Geneva, Switzerland for my corporate job. I was sitting next to somebody who was an outside consultant the company had hired for something. I was sitting and asking, and he asked me, he said, "What do you do on the weekends, Bob?" I said, "Well, no, I'm really passionate about writing this book." Oh, he said, "Well, you write books?" I said, "No, I'm trying. I'm learning how to write this book, and I don't know how to get it published." He said, "Well, I know somebody who's in the publishing business, and my wife, and she has one of the biggest literary agents in America, and so maybe she'd represent you." And so it turned out he connected me with some literary agents, and one thing led to another. One of them accepted me, and I got my first book deal. I didn't know anything about writing a book, but my reinvention from being just a corporate person to being a writer was as a result of being curious, acting, taking actions, and talking to people. Being passionate, explaining what you're interested in, and talking to people. And one thing leads to another, and the next thing you know, you get a book deal. Number 4, put a core thesis together. If you want to reinvent your career, put your core thesis together. When I was in the pricing area at Pfizer, I realized all this marketplace was changing and being disrupted. And so as a result of being curious, learning, talking to people, learning about healthcare systems, I put together a 2-page document. It ended up being 20 pages about what I saw in the marketplace, what the problems were, and what I thought not the solution was, but an approach to looking at the problem a little differently. But writing those 2 pages, or eventually it ended up being 20 pages, helped me clarify my thinking. That's the thing. When we often want to reinvent ourselves, we think about a lot of things. But when we don't write it down, writing helps clarify and helps you understand what you're really trying to show people, what you're really trying to discover, and what you're really trying to propose. And that 2-page thesis, that core thesis that I wrote, what helped me reinvent my role, reinvent my career, and actually grow my life. We got a chance to actually pitch that proposal to senior management. As a result, they created the first ever market access function in the entire company. That was the 5th way you can start reinventing your career, is to act now. Don't wait, because there's so much disruption that's happening in the world. There's so much change that's happening in the marketplace that if you wait now, you're going to be waiting for a long time. There's nothing to wait for. Start acting now if you want to reinvent yourself. Start getting out in the marketplace. Talk to people. Get on advisory boards. I started sitting on advisory boards, years ago for companies to help guide them and understand what help them understand how to get into the marketplaces in the pharma and healthcare space. So whether you're writing books, your desire is to write books, to build a business, or to reinvent your career to a next level, I believe you have to start before you need to, be curious, learn, explore, and talk to people, put a core thesis together, and act now. The world, let me just wrap up. The world is changing very quickly. Organizations are trying to adapt. And I think the problem is we get stuck sometimes. We get stuck in this overanalyzing, overthinking, and hoping the change will slow down, but it never does. It never slows down. I believe today you have a great opportunity to reinvent yourself to whatever you want to do. The question is, what do you want to do? Do you want to stay in your job and your career that you're in, grow your career in the same company or same industry, or maybe explore something else like I did? So hopefully this video has been helpful. If you're interested in learning how to reinvent your career, take it to the next level, check out my 7-day program, a reinvention experience. I'm calling it the Embrace the Chaos Transformational Experience in India for 2020. Check it out. I'm taking only a few people, a handful of people, to India for a walkabout. We're going to talk about reinvention. We're going to talk about letting go. We're going to talk about, figuring out what you really want to do and putting a plan together to help you reinvent your life. That's the goal of this program. It's an experience. We walk, we talk, we see things, we feel things, we do fun. I think the world has changed, and it's now your turn to change with it. Hope to help. Bob Miglani, would love and respect for all that you do. Have a great day.